They say life can change in an instant. For me, that instant came with a phone call. A call that ripped my world apart. In the span of 24 hours, I lost everything I thought defined me. My family, my dreams, my home. But sometimes, losing everything is the only way to truly find yourself. It was an ordinary Tuesday. Just another day in my tiny office where the hum of the world felt distant and I could control the chaos of my desk, even if nothing else. I adjusted a stack of papers, trying to settle the restlessness in my chest. And then my phone buzzed. Mom's name lit up the screen, and for a moment, I hesitated. She usually called with cheerful updates about her garden or Dad's latest mischief, but something about this call felt different. I almost didn't pick up, but something about the timing felt off. "Hi, Mom," I said, forcing cheer into my voice. The reply was not her usual warm greeting. It was shaky, broken. "Sweetheart," her voice cracked, followed by a gasp for air. "It's Dad. He's gone." Funerals are strange. People come, they say all the right things, but none of it feels real. Dad's was no different. Everything moved in slow motion. Faces blurred together, voices faded into the background, and before I knew it, the house was quiet again. Too quiet. Mom spent her days at the dining table, holding Dad's favorite mug like it was the last piece of him she had left. Sometimes I'd catch her staring out the window, whispering things like, "He always kept us together." Those words hit harder than she knew. The house. It didn't feel like home anymore. Dad's laughter used to echo through its walls, filling every corner with warmth. Without him, it was just empty. I wanted to scream, to demand answers from a universe that didn't care. Instead, I did what Dad would have done. I kept going and tried to keep it together. I handled the bills, responded to the endless messages from well-meaning friends, and took charge, just like Dad would have. But grief isn't something you can organize away. It creeps in, relentless, breaking through the cracks when you least expect it. I remember the morning it happened. I was sorting through the pile of mail on the kitchen counter, something I'd taken on to help Mom out. Most of it was junk. But then, there it was. A stark white envelope with bold red letters stamped on the front. Final notice. My chest tightened as I opened it. The words swam on the page, but one sentence stood out like a slap. "Your property is scheduled for foreclosure." I rushed to Mom. She was folding laundry in the living room, her movements slow, almost mechanical. "What's this?" I asked, holding up the letter. Her hands froze mid-fold. When she looked at the envelope, I saw the guilt wash over her. "I meant to tell you," she started, her voice trembling. "Tell me what? That we're losing the house?" My voice cracked under the weight of the words. Tears brimmed in her eyes. "Your dad didn't want to worry you. We thought we'd find a way. But after he..." Her words broke off and she sank into the sofa, crumpled under the weight of her grief and the reality we were facing. The realization hit me like a tidal wave. This house wasn't just walls and a roof. It was our memories, birthday celebrations, Sunday mornings with Dad's pancakes, late-night talks in the kitchen. And now it was slipping through our fingers, just like him. Desperation makes you bold. I spent hours on the phone with banks, pleading for an extension. I offered to sell my car, to pick up extra shifts at work, anything to save the house. But reality doesn't bend to wishes. One afternoon, the movers came. Box by box, they dismantled our lives. Mom sat on the porch, tears streaming down her face as she clutched a picture of her and Dad. "This was his dream," she whispered, "giving us this home." I knelt beside her, putting an arm around her. "We'll make new dreams, Mom. I promise." But I didn't know if I believed it myself. A week after, we moved into a cramped apartment. I returned to work, desperate for normalcy. But that morning, my boss called me into her office. "Emma," she began, avoiding my gaze. "We're downsizing. Your position has been eliminated." Her words felt like a punch to the gut. I've been here for 5 years, I said, my voice shaking. I know, she said, sliding a severance check toward me. It's not personal, it's just business. I left the office with my belongings in a box, feeling like a piece of my identity had been ripped away. Work had been my anchor, and now I was adrift. That evening, I returned home to find a letter from my fiancé waiting on the counter. His handwriting, once familiar and comforting, now felt like a stranger's. The letter wasn't just a breakup, it was a meticulous, cold rejection of everything I was becoming. I can't do this anymore, it read. I didn't sign up for this. I hope you understand. Understand? What was there to understand? That grief had turned me into a burden he didn't want to carry? That the woman he proposed to no longer existed in his eyes? I threw the letter across the room, the tears spilling over uncontrollably. Anger and despair burned through me. How could he leave me now when I needed him the most? That night, I deleted every picture of us from my phone, every message, every memory. But the pain lingered, sharp and unrelenting. One night, unable to sleep, I got in my car and drove. The city blurred past me, its lights distant and cold. I found myself on a bridge, the water below dark and still. I stepped out, the wind biting at my skin as I stared at the abyss. The thought crossed my mind. Would it be easier to just let go? But then a memory broke through. I was 8 years old, sitting on Dad's shoulders at the 4th of July fireworks. I remembered feeling like I could touch the stars. Don't let go, I had said, laughing. I'll never let go, he promised. The memory shattered me and I fell to my knees, sobbing. Dad was gone, but his love wasn't. It lived in me, in every memory. And in that moment, I knew I couldn't let the darkness win. Scene 8, the first step. The next morning, I woke up with swollen eyes and an aching chest. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't consumed by despair, but by a quiet determination. I couldn't let my dad's memory be tied to my collapse. He wouldn't have wanted that. I picked up the phone and called Lily, an old college friend I hadn't spoken to in years. Her voice was a warm balm on my raw emotions. I heard about your dad, she said gently. I've been meaning to reach out. How are you holding up? I hesitated before replying. Not well, to be honest. I lost my job and my fiancé left. I feel like I'm starting from scratch. Lily paused, and then her tone shifted to one of encouragement. Listen, my company has an opening in their communications team. It's entry-level, but it might be a good way to get back on your feet. I didn't have the energy to feel excited, but I latched onto the opportunity like a lifeline. I polished my resume, practiced answering interview questions in the mirror, and, most importantly, I showed up. To my surprise, they hired me on the spot. The job wasn't glamorous, but it gave me structure, a reason to get out of bed in the morning. My boss, a no-nonsense woman named Karen, quickly became a mentor. She was tough but fair, and her belief in me was like water to a wilting plant. Outside of work, I found another lifeline, volunteering. On Saturdays, I started helping out at a local women's shelter. The stories I heard there were humbling. Women escaping abusive relationships, single mothers rebuilding their lives, immigrants starting from scratch. It was a reminder that I wasn't alone in my struggles. One woman, Rosa, made a profound impact on me. She'd lost everything in a house fire, but still carried herself with a grace and quiet strength that inspired everyone around her. Sometimes, she told me one afternoon, losing everything is the only way to rebuild. You don't realize how strong you are until you have no choice but to find out. Those words stayed with me. Slowly, I began to rebuild my life. I found a rhythm in the routine of work, volunteering, and self-care. I wrote in my journal every night, pouring out the grief, the anger, the hope. The act of writing became therapeutic, a way to process the chaos within me. One Saturday at the shelter, a group of us were brainstorming ways to raise funds. Someone suggested selling handmade crafts, and the idea struck a chord in me. I had always loved art as a child, but life had pushed that passion to the background. I started small, creating simple paintings and sketches. The process of creating something from nothing was cathartic, like breathing life back into myself. Rosa encouraged me to bring a few pieces to the shelter's fundraiser. To my shock, they sold out within hours. "You have a gift, Emma," Rosa said, beaming. "Don't stop!" Buoyed by the encouragement, I started taking my art seriously. I launched an online shop, sharing my journey and creations on social media. My story resonated with people: grief, resilience, and the power of rebuilding. Orders poured in, and soon I was juggling my full-time job with a blossoming art business. 3 years later, I stood in the middle of my own art studio, a space filled with color, light, and the sound of brushes against canvas. The walls were lined with my work, pieces inspired by my journey, each one a testament to survival and transformation. I had left the corporate job a year ago to focus on my art full-time. What started as a side hustle had grown into a thriving business with clients from around the world. I was now Emma Joshua, professional artist and advocate for mental health and resilience. Rosa remained one of my biggest supporters. She often visited the studio, her laughter filling the space. Together, we launched a program at the shelter, teaching art therapy to women who had experienced trauma. Watching them find healing through creativity was one of the most fulfilling parts of my life. But my transformation wasn't just professional. I had learned to love myself again, to embrace the scars and the struggles that shaped me. I rekindled old friendships, deepened my bond with my mom, and allowed myself to dream again. One evening, as I painted a piece inspired by my dad, I realized just how far I had come. Losing him had shattered me, but it had also revealed parts of myself I never knew existed. His love, his strength, and his lessons were woven into every step of my journey. On the anniversary of his death, I revisited the bridge where I had once stood, lost in despair. This time, I wasn't there to grieve, but to reflect. The water below sparkled in the sunlight, and the air felt lighter. I whispered, "Thank you, Dad, for everything." As I turned to leave, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. I wasn't just Emma Joshua, the girl who lost everything. I was Emma Joshua, the woman who found herself in the ashes. What would you do if you lost everything? Would you have the courage to rebuild? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story inspired you, please like, share, and subscribe. Join me next time on Stories That Shatter.